In a high-end downtown restaurant, a young waitress is publicly humiliated when the arrogant girlfriend of a powerful billionaire slaps her in front of the entire elite crowd. The shame, the whispers, the disbelief. It all hits at once, but this moment sparks something inside her she can no longer ignore. The very next day, the same billionaire offers her an unexpected opportunity. Take over his empire and step into a world of power, influence, and danger. Suddenly, the waitress who once served others is thrust into a ruthless corporate battlefield, facing betrayal, secret schemes, and the relentless wrath of the woman who tried to destroy her. Every choice she makes could either elevate her or ruin her life forever. The evening at the prestigious downtown restaurant was bustling with energy, with the clinking of wine glasses and the hum of conversations filling the air. It was one of those places where the elite gathered to enjoy fine dining, surrounded by an aura of exclusivity. Among them was Olivia Bennet, the girlfriend of a renowned billionaire, Julian Sinclair. She was seated at a corner table, looking every bit the part of a glamorous socialite, her icy blue eyes scanning the room as she sipped her champagne. Emma, a young waitress with an impeccable work ethic, had been serving at this upscale restaurant for almost a year. She had always prided herself on providing the best service, but tonight was different. It felt like the room was charged with an invisible tension. She couldn't shake the feeling that something unusual was about to happen. As Emma approached Olivia's table, her tray loaded with drinks and appetizers, she noticed the woman glaring at her from across the room. Olivia's gaze was cold, almost judgmental. Emma had seen the look before, one that seemed to come from people who believed the world owed them something. She took a deep breath, trying to push aside the growing discomfort as she set the drinks down on the table. Before Emma could speak, Olivia's voice cut through the air like a sharp knife. "What's this?" She sneered, gesturing toward the drink Emma had placed in front of her. "Ma'am, that's your Chardonnay," Emma replied, her voice steady despite the tension. "Don't tell me what it is," Olivia snapped. "I can tell by the smell that it's cheap. I demand better." Emma, taken aback by the comment, took a step back. But before she could even respond, Olivia's hand shot up and slapped her across the face. The sound of the slap echoed throughout the room, and all conversation came to an abrupt halt. Emma stood frozen, a mixture of shock and disbelief running through her veins. The entire restaurant went silent, eyes wide with astonishment. For a moment, Emma could feel the sting of the slap on her cheek, but something inside her snapped. This was not the first time she had faced disrespect, but it would be the last. Julian, who had been sitting silently at the table, seemed unfazed by the incident. His eyes remained fixed on his phone, as though he hadn't noticed the chaos erupting around him. The tension in the room grew thicker as whispers spread like wildfire. But Emma, despite the humiliation, held her head high. She turned to walk away, trying to keep her composure, but her mind was racing. How could anyone act this way? And more importantly, why was she letting it happen? The night dragged on, but Emma couldn't focus on anything else. The incident with Olivia kept replaying in her mind. It wasn't just about the slap. It was about the lack of respect, the feeling that she was nothing more than a servant to people like Olivia. As she finished her shift and headed toward the back door, she passed by the kitchen where the staff gathered to unwind. Her co-workers exchanged knowing glances but didn't say much. They all knew the rules when it came to people like Olivia. You didn't fight back. You just endured. But that night, something inside Emma changed. She wasn't going to let this go. The incident weighed heavily on her as she made her way to the staff exit. As she stepped outside, the cold night air hit her face, and the harshness of what had just transpired began to sink in. She had been humiliated in front of everyone, but the way Olivia had acted was a reflection of a much deeper issue. It wasn't just about the slap. It was about the constant reminder that some people believed they could treat others however they wanted because of their wealth, status, or power. Emma had been quiet for too long. She had always kept her head down, tried to stay out of the way, and never let anything affect her. But that night she realized something. She had every right to stand up for herself. She wasn't invisible. She wasn't just a waitress. She was a person deserving of respect, and she wasn't going to tolerate being treated as anything less. As she walked toward her car, she made a promise to herself. She would never let anyone make her feel small again. The next day, Emma arrived at work earlier than usual. The restaurant was quiet, and most of the staff hadn't arrived yet. She took a deep breath as she walked to the back and changed into her uniform. Today felt different. She wasn't just another server. She wasn't just going through the motions. Something inside her had shifted, and she was ready to confront whatever came next. The day went by slowly, but Emma's resolve only grew stronger. When Olivia and Julian finally arrived for dinner that evening, Emma could feel the tension building inside her. As she approached their table to take their order, Olivia looked at her with a smirk. "What do you want now?" she asked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. Emma took a deep breath. It was time to take control. "I'm here to serve you, Olivia," she said, her voice calm but firm. "But I will not tolerate disrespect. Not from you or anyone else." Olivia's eyes widened in surprise, and for the first time, Emma saw a flicker of uncertainty in the other woman's gaze. "You're nothing but a waitress," Olivia spat. "You have no right to speak to me like that." Emma met her gaze without flinching. "I have every right," she replied. "And if you continue to treat me like that, I'll make sure you'll never step foot in this restaurant again." The room seemed to go quiet, as if everyone was waiting for Olivia's response. For a moment the tension hung in the air, thick and palpable. Then Olivia let out a laugh, one that was full of mockery. "You think you can just walk in here and threaten me?" she sneered. But Emma, for the first time, didn't back down. She had made her stand. No more silence. No more mistreatment. She was ready to take control of her own life, and nothing, not even a slap from a billionaire's girlfriend, was going to stop her. Emma had never imagined that her small act of defiance would set off a chain of events she couldn't control. As the days went by, the weight of her words echoed in her mind, but so did the consequences. She had hoped that standing up for herself would bring her some peace, but instead she was suddenly thrust into a whirlwind she wasn't prepared for. The following morning, the restaurant's manager, Mark, called her into his office. The look on his face wasn't one of anger, but it was filled with something unsettling. "Emma," he began, his voice low, "Olivia Bennett has lodged a formal complaint against you." Emma felt her heart drop. She had expected something like this, but hearing it out loud made her stomach twist. Mark continued, "She's demanding an apology or she'll take legal action. And we know how influential she is. She's threatening to get the restaurant blacklisted." Emma swallowed hard. "But I didn't do anything wrong. I stood up for myself." "I know," Mark said, his expression sympathetic. "But you have to understand, Olivia's family is one of our biggest investors. Julian Sinclair is well connected, and their presence here means a lot to this place. I'm afraid you're caught in the middle of something bigger than you realize." The words hung in the air, and Emma's mind raced. She had made a decision in the heat of the moment, but now the reality of the situation was sinking in. She had challenged someone who was far more powerful than she could have ever imagined. Before she could respond, Mark added, "I've been told to make it clear, if you don't apologize, you may not have a job here anymore." The ultimatum was clear, but it wasn't just the threat of losing her job that weighed heavily on Emma's heart. It was the realization that people like Olivia always got away with their actions because they could buy silence, obedience, and submission. She couldn't help but feel the anger bubbling up again, but this time it was different. She wasn't going to back down. But Emma also knew she couldn't fight this battle alone. After work, she found herself walking the familiar streets of the city, her thoughts consumed with what to do next. As she reached her apartment building, her phone buzzed in her pocket. It was a text message from an unknown number. "Meet me at the Café Lux at 9. We need to talk about your situation. Trust me, this will be your chance." The message was cryptic, but there was something about it that felt strangely urgent. Without thinking, Emma typed out a quick reply. "Who is this?" The response came almost immediately. "You'll find out when you get there." Emma hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to make of the message, but curiosity got the better of her. She needed answers. She needed a way out of this mess. When she arrived at Café Luxe, it was already bustling with activity, but the familiar scent of freshly brewed coffee did little to calm her nerves. She took a seat in the corner, scanning the room for anyone who might be waiting for her. Then from across the café, a tall figure approached. It was Julian Sinclair. His presence was commanding, his aura filled with confidence and power. He didn't sit down right away, but instead he placed a single file folder on the table in front of her. "Emma," he said, his voice smooth, "I know what happened, and I think we both know that it's not as simple as you think." Emma narrowed her eyes. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to stop fighting this," Julian replied. "Olivia is a lot of things, but she's not someone who loses. Trust me, I know. She'll make your life miserable, and I can't let that happen to someone who works as hard as you do." Emma's heart raced. What was he saying? "I'm offering you a way out," Julian continued. "I can make this go away, but you'll need to work with me. I want you to take over Olivia's position at the Sinclair Group. She's been losing focus, and I think you have the drive she's lacking. It's your chance to turn the tables." Emma blinked in disbelief. "What, you want me to take her job?" "Not just any job," Julian said with a knowing smile. "I'm talking about becoming the new face of the business. Olivia is on the verge of making some very bad decisions, and I need someone capable of taking charge before things get out of hand. You're more than qualified." The offer was as shocking as it was tempting. Emma could feel her pulse quicken. She had never imagined a future in the corporate world, but the idea of taking over Olivia's position, of becoming the one in control, made her heart race with excitement and fear. "Why me?" she asked, still trying to process everything. "Because, Emma," Julian said, "you have the potential to do more than just serve people. You have the strength to take this business to the next level. You just need someone to give you the push." As Julian stood up to leave, he added, "Think about it. If you decide to take this chance, I'll be here. I don't expect an answer right away. But remember, this opportunity doesn't come twice." Emma was left sitting at the cafe, her mind spinning with the weight of Julian's words. She was at a crossroads. The path she took from here would shape the rest of her life. But was she ready to take control, or was she destined to stay in the shadows forever? The next few days passed in a blur for Emma. Julian's offer haunted her every waking moment. She couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, her mind constantly turning over the possibilities. She'd never thought about running a business, let alone taking over a powerful family empire like Sinclair Group, but the idea of stepping into a world where Olivia had failed was intoxicating. Emma wasn't the same person she was a week ago. She had a newfound confidence, a burning desire to prove herself, not just to Olivia, but to the entire world. The problem was, making the decision felt like walking a tightrope. It wasn't just about her future. It was about her soul. Could she trust Julian? Was this truly an opportunity or just a dangerous game? She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to his offer than he was letting on. Why her? Why now? What did Julian stand to gain from all this? She tried to push these thoughts aside as she prepared to meet him again, but the questions gnawed at her. That evening, Emma walked into the luxurious office building where Julian had asked to meet her. The high-rise glowed in the fading sunlight, the glass windows reflecting the city lights like a million tiny stars. It was everything she had imagined the Sinclair Group to be, powerful, untouchable, flawless. She felt a surge of anxiety in her chest as the elevator whisked her up to the top floor. Julian was waiting for her in a private meeting room. The moment she stepped inside, she noticed that the atmosphere had shifted. There was no warm greeting, no smile. Instead, his expression was intense, almost calculating. "Emma," he said, his voice low, "I trust you've thought it over." She nodded, trying to steady her nerves. "I have, and I'm still not sure what's really behind this offer." Julian didn't react right away. He simply leaned back in his chair, watching her with a knowing look. "I think you do know," he said softly. You just need to decide if you're ready to play the game. Because once you step into this world, there's no turning back. Emma's heart raced as his words sank in. She wasn't sure what she was more afraid of, the life she was leaving behind, or the one Julian was asking her to embrace. "And what happens if I say no?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Julian's eyes flickered, a faint smile curling at the corner of his lips. "That's not an option anymore. Olivia's already pushing her agenda to take full control. She won't stop until she gets what she wants. If you don't step up, she will ruin everything you've worked for. But if you do, you'll have a chance to create something new, something powerful." The words hit Emma like a punch to the gut. She was trapped. Julian's tone wasn't threatening, but the implication was clear. Refuse, and Olivia would tear her down, but accept, and she'd be tangled in a web of power, secrets, and manipulation. She could feel her resolve starting to crumble. She had dreamed of a life like this, of making an impact, of being more than just a waitress, but at what cost? Julian's phone buzzed on the table, interrupting the silence between them. He glanced at the screen, then back at Emma. "I think it's time to show you what's at stake," he said, standing up and walking toward a large desk at the far end of the room. He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick file, placing it in front of her. "This is the real deal," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone. Emma opened the file, her eyes scanning the pages filled with financial documents, legal contracts, and confidential memos. The name Olivia Bennett appeared repeatedly, along with mention of aggressive takeovers, shady business dealings, and corporate strategies that seemed more ruthless than anything Emma had ever seen. Her breath caught in her throat. "Olivia's not just trying to take over the business," Julian continued, his voice steady but cold. "She's planning to destroy everything the Sinclair family built. And if you don't step in, she'll tear it all apart, including you." Emma's head spun as she processed the information. Julian's words were starting to make sense, but there was still a lingering question that refused to leave her. "Why me?" She looked up at Julian, her voice barely a whisper. "Why are you doing this?" He paused, studying her face before answering. "Because Olivia is dangerous. She's playing a game she doesn't understand. I need someone who can outsmart her. Someone who's not afraid to get their hands dirty." There it was. The final piece of the puzzle. Julian wasn't offering her a chance for success. He was giving her a weapon to fight a battle she hadn't asked for. And the worst part, she wasn't sure if she could walk away from it. She glanced back down at the file in front of her. The weight of it, the responsibility of what was inside, pressed down on her chest like 1,000 pounds. This was it. This was her moment to choose. But before she could make her decision, the door to the room swung open with a force that made Emma jump. Standing in the doorway was Olivia, her eyes cold with fury. "You think you can take everything from me?" She spat, her voice laced with venom. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Olivia's presence filled the room like a storm. Her eyes locked onto Emma, and for a moment time seemed to stop. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Emma's heart pounded in her chest as she met Olivia's cold gaze, refusing to back down. Olivia stepped into the room, her heels clicking sharply on the polished floor. "You think you can just take over?" Olivia sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. "You have no idea what you're walking into. This is my world, and you're nothing but a pawn in it." Emma felt a surge of anger flood her veins, but she held her ground. Julian, who had been silently watching the confrontation, finally spoke, his tone calm but unwavering. "Olivia, this isn't just about you anymore. This is bigger than both of us." Olivia's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Bigger than me? You're actually handing over the reins to this little waitress? You're losing your mind, Julian." Julian didn't flinch. "She's the one who's capable of taking this company forward, not you." The words hung in the air, and Olivia's face twisted with fury. She looked between Julian and Emma, her eyes flashing with something darker than anger, something more dangerous. "Or do you think you can just erase me from this business?" Olivia's voice dropped dangerously low. "I'll make sure you regret this. You won't get away with it." Emma felt a chill crawl up her spine. There was something in Olivia's eyes, a promise of destruction. The atmosphere in the room shifted, the air thick with the weight of unspoken threats. Olivia wasn't just angry. She was calculating, ready to destroy anyone who stood in her way. And that was when Emma realized the full extent of what she was getting into. This wasn't just a corporate takeover. It was a battle for survival. Olivia turned on her heel, her voice icy and final. "You have no idea who you're messing with, Emma. This is just the beginning. Enjoy your little moment of power because it won't last long." With that, she stormed out of the room, leaving an oppressive silence in her wake. Emma felt the tension in the air lift slightly, but her nerves were on edge. She wasn't just fighting for a promotion anymore. She was fighting for her future and possibly her life. Julian stood up from his chair and walked over to Emma. "Olivia won't give up easily," he said quietly, his eyes serious. "But she's underestimated you, and that's her mistake." Emma looked at Julian, her mind racing. "What happens now?" Julian met her gaze with unwavering confidence. "Now the real game begins. Olivia will stop at nothing to regain control. But you have something she doesn't, the will to fight. And that's exactly what we need to win." Emma took a deep breath. She had always been the quiet one, the one who stayed in the background, but everything had changed in the last few days. She had never felt more alive or more terrified. "What do I need to do?" she asked, her voice steady despite the fear swirling inside her. Julian smiled, a glint of admiration in his eyes. "First, you need to get ready. The next move will come fast, and it will be ruthless. Olivia's already making her next move, and we need to be 2 steps ahead." Emma nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She wasn't just an employee anymore. She was a player in a high-stakes game, and there was no turning back. As Julian handed her the file once more, she could feel the gravity of the decision she had made. There was no going back to the life she had known. The battle for Sinclair Group was far from over, but Olivia's threats were only the beginning. Emma knew that she would have to face even darker forces before this was all over. Just then her phone buzzed in her pocket. The screen lit up with a message that made her blood run cold. "You don't know who you're dealing with. I'm coming for you." The message was unsigned, but Emma didn't need to guess who it was from. Olivia had already made her move. Emma's heart raced as the weight of the situation pressed down on her. She had crossed a line, and now there was no way out. Olivia wasn't just a rival. She was a force of nature, and Emma was about to find out just how far she would go to protect her empire. The game had only just begun, and Emma was already in too deep to turn back. Emma woke up to an eerie silence the following morning. The message from Olivia still lingered in her mind, its threat hanging over her like a dark cloud. She couldn't afford to wait around any longer. Olivia was playing a dangerous game, and Emma had to make her next move carefully. The Sinclair Group was everything now, and she had no intention of letting Olivia take it from her. She had already crossed too many lines. There was no going back. She met with Julian again in the early afternoon, the tension palpable between them. He was calm, but Emma could see the subtle hints of worry in his eyes. "Olivia's making moves," he said, his voice low. "She's reaching out to our investors, trying to turn them against you. It's time to hit back." Emma took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "What do we do?" Julian handed her a folder, and she opened it to reveal a series of contracts and documents. "You need to take control, Emma. This is the leverage you need. It's a risky move, but it'll give you the power to shut Olivia down for good." The documents detailed secret agreements, shady business practices, and corrupt dealings that Olivia had been involved in. Emma's heart raced as she scanned the pages. This wasn't just about business, it was about survival. "We expose her," Julian continued, his voice almost a whisper. "We take this to the board and make it public. Olivia won't be able to recover from this." Emma's fingers trembled as she held the documents. It was a dangerous path, but there was no other option. Olivia had forced her hand. "Let's do it," Emma said, her voice steady, but filled with determination. They made their move swiftly. Julian arranged a meeting with the board members, and Emma presented the evidence of Olivia's corruption. The room was filled with shock, disbelief, and a heavy silence as the board members absorbed the information. Olivia's reign was crumbling, and she knew it. By the time Olivia realized what had happened, it was too late. She stormed into the boardroom, her face pale with fury. "You think you can just take everything from me?" Olivia spat, her voice cracking with rage. "You're nothing. You'll never be able to handle this business." But Emma stood tall, her gaze unwavering. "I already have, Olivia," she said, her voice calm, but filled with a power she had never known before. "And I'm not backing down." Olivia's face twisted with a mix of disbelief and hatred as the board members voted to remove her from the Sinclair Group. Emma had won. She had taken control of everything Olivia had tried to destroy. Olivia was escorted out of the building, her empire crumbling around her. As the door closed behind her, Emma turned to face the room, a feeling of victory settling in her chest. She had done it. She had taken what was rightfully hers. But as she looked at Julian, she realized that the cost of this victory was higher than she had ever imagined. She had crossed a line, and the path ahead would be filled with even more challenges. She wasn't just the new face of Sinclair Group. She was now the target of everyone who had been loyal to Olivia, and Emma knew that the battle was far from over. "It's just beginning," Julian said, his voice low as if reading her mind. "But you've proven you're stronger than anyone realized." Emma looked out the window, the city skyline stretching out before her. She had won, but now the real work began. She had taken control, but the road ahead would be filled with power struggles, betrayal, and tough choices. But Emma was ready. She had found her place in the world, and nothing was going to take it from her. The game had changed, and Olivia had lost. Emma had won, but now she would make sure no one ever underestimated her again.